So I don't like, and it's just me. I don't, because I don't know it. But intention and planning, like, what do you see? What do you hear wrong in this one? We're just speculating. Model of action. So you have the intention formation, the intention initiation, the intention implementation, then the intention deactivation. In between, when you're motivated to change, and then your motivation afterwards. So it just seems like, the value is on the doing and what motivated you to get there. Your motivation wanes in the middle, it just seems like to me. So let's look at the next one. Like I said, I don't know these. Maybe they're a benefit to someone that's not on, that's trying to come off of alcohol or drugs. This one is called the protection motivation. So, and like I said, I'm just, these are what was presented as theories of behavior change. So you have the source of information that may be maladaptive or positive adaptive. You get the knowledge. So positive, it looks as if you have a response, then it's perceived self-efficacy, a coping appraisal, and then it goes into the intention, then the behavior. Or if it comes from a place of maladaptive, you have the perceived severity, the perceived vulnerability, then it goes to a threat appraisal. So my fear of eating candy is my health behavior, which is the diabetes and decreasing sugar. There's a mediation process and then a coping. So for that one, I guess, what do you think? If I'm still coming at a place of a maladaptive thought process, I'm never gonna, it's gonna all seem to come from there. Like there's no maybe change in the middle, I guess. Now, if someone else in the chat or someone is familiar with these behavior changes and you see or find something different, I'm just biased because I'm presenting the stages of change, just giving what would be the option. What would be the next one? Theory of planned behavior. This one is developed as determinants of reference, value, intention. Okay, so now this one is including personality, mood, intelligence, education. So it sounds like the biopsychosocial, but then it has the behavioral beliefs or the normative beliefs or the control beliefs. And then you have an attitude towards the behavior, the subjective norm or the perceived behavioral control, and then the intention, then the behavior. And then it takes a turn and then it goes back. So this seems like a never ending loop, doesn't it? Because, what if you like to drink and if and your family like to drink and your attitude is I'm gonna drink, then do you have the intention to change the behavior? So I don't know that I particularly like that one either. What's the next one? And I'm just going don't like because I'm flippantly looking at it. And I haven't done a side by side. The stages of change has just been the one that worked. Health belief model. So the modifying factors of this one, it depends upon age, gender, where you're located, education, ethnicity, health knowledge, immigration status, income, race, wealth. You sit in group and we hear individuals, Hispanic or Latino, and they say, over there they can, drink at the age of, they can go buy alcohol at the age of 8, right? So that's the modifying factor, which may not apply here because it's illegal to do that at 8. Then you have the individual beliefs, which then you have, benefits of preventive action, and something's in red there, barriers to the action, and then the action is the individual behaviors change, and then there's some cues, um, whether it be media campaigns and things like that. It just seems like there's more barriers within the belief aspect of this one than it is to change. I'm just thinking out loud, but that's another one. What's the next one? The elaboration likely. Okay, immediately I don't like it. Right? Why don't I like it? Because what do we see with this one? Too much. What do we even start on this one? Do you even see a starting place? So I persuade you or communicate with persuading you. And then you may be motivated to process. But then there are some peripheral cues, which is positive effect, expert sources. So, you know, like, and then either there's an attitude shift or return to your initial attitude. And then when you get out of that loop, the ability to process distractions, I don't like it. You all can look at it. Yeah, I think you can see it on your screen. If you want to Google that, that's a lot. Let's go to the next one. I don't like it. Prototype willingness. Okay, well now this one's a little bit better, a little easier. This one is so you the direct effects of behavior. So you have attitude, you have risk. So you have attitude that goes into behavioral intentions and behavioral willingness versus, you know, against risk behaviors. So it just seems like at that point, what if you have an attitude that the behaviors that you're committing are not at risk? Not good. Next one. Social cognitive, made this one way too small, but this one is the outcome expectations, behavioral factors, knowledge, self-efficacy, which is performance accomplishments, vicarious experience. So whenever we're in group and people are talking about trauma, right? Maybe this is where this is. And then you got arrows all over the place again. So what are the outcome expectation, and then what kind of supports do an individual have? So just with this one alone, if apparently there's, you can go to the next slide. There's a challenge of using behavioral model interventions because it fails to connect the framework with the intervention. That's just what I got out of that one. So that one that's the 7th challenge. What's the next one? How many challenges have we come up with at this point? 8. The challenge of the use of goals as a determinant of effectiveness lacks theoretical underpinning. So, I mean, how do you decide, you know, that they made an accomplishment of their goals? So that's challenge number 8. So many challenges. And then the last challenge is, I said the last one, which you realize that my last one is never the last one. Challenge is the lack of manner in which interventions are reported. So behavioral interventions are reported poorly and difficult to replicate. So when I asked earlier, what interventions are you using? How do you report those? And how do you monitor it? So next one. All right. What's the question that I asked here? Keep going. So theory can be used to identify the selection and sequence of cognitive, emotional, and motivational state that precedes behavior enactment and suggests targets for behavioral change. So how much stock have you placed in the identification of the theoretical orientation and its effectiveness with chosen populations? That's a really long question to say what. Are you keeping a tally of your interventions? And what is your theoretical orientation? My rationalization is using the whole person in the use of the stages of change when they're answering those questions on that document that I'm about to show you. So the drum roll has been going for a while now. So how much stock have you placed? Let's go to the next one. Stages of change. We noted this by Prochaska and DiClemente. It is a model of behavior change, which was originated in 1983. The basis was on promoting health and behavior change. It helps describe how people modify problem behavior or acquire positive behavior. It's a model of intentional change, focused on decision making, and it may help to explain the differences in a person's success during treatment. Let's go to the next one. It's also known as the theoretical model. And again, it was formulated in the 1970s, but published during the 1980s. And it was during research of smokers who had quit on their own. And I had mentioned the number of articles that related to it earlier. So we can go to the next slide. Dr. Prochaska, internationally recognized for his work, currently the principal investigator of over 60 million in research grants for prevention of cancer, and one of the 10 most eminent clinical psychologists in the past 70 years. Let's see what he looks like. I wanted to show a picture of him. There he is. That's Miss Dr. Prochaska. Because you know, you always hear about somebody and There's stages of, their models and whatnot, but you don't know who they are. So you can go to the next one. What did he do? Stage or processes of self-change. This was in that's supposed to be Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology. And originally it was designed to show the systematic relationship between stages of change and process of change from leading theories of counsel and behavior. All right, let's meet Dr. DiClemente. Here he is. And we mentioned him before. He said he's retired and he's not working. But these are the stages of change. So we can go to the next one. Let's see the stages of change. Change are pre-contemplation, contemplation, plan, action, and maintenance. What's the next one? Pre-contemplation, there's a time for a change. So what does this mean? Let's go to the next one. So you're not currently considering a change. Ignorance is bliss. What you just, I don't know. So what are ways that you can move your individuals from pre-contemplation to contemplation? The next slide. Who do you think needs to make the changes in the situation and why? Isn't there anything you would like to change in the way you blank? And so earlier I said that this can apply for clients and it can apply for yourself. If you were to change any of the ways in which you blank, what would you change? So the action step for pre-contemplation is provide information, feedback to raise the person's awareness. Next one. Now I'm thinking, next one. You're ambivalent about the change, so you're sitting on the fence. If you're not satisfied, next one, if you're not satisfied with the way things have been and you wanted to change one thing about blank, what might that be? What behaviors do you think you need to do different? What would you like to do differently when you get upset, frustrated with? In this step, you want to help the person tip the balance in favor of change, help the person see the benefits of change and the consequences of not. We don't have to go back, but if you think about for yourself as a clinician, we always are talking about self-care. So what do you want to change about the way that you provide yourself with self-care? If you're not satisfied, isn't there anything you would like to change in the way you work? Isn't there anything you would like to change in the way you think? And then you get to the constant contemplation. So you can practice this for yourself and you can encourage your counseling, your clients as well. You want to help them to see the benefits of changing. So all of what I've done up to this point is to say, let's look at behavior change and let's look at simplifying it, if you will, because apparently with that last few slides with all of those behavior changes, that seemed to be a lot. So let's look at the next slide, making a plan. Plan A, plan B, some people like to say up to plan Z. What's the next slide? So some experience with change, trying to change, you're testing the water. So this means there's something that you're planning to do planning to act within 1 month. I found out that I was actually doing the challenge of change presentation and it was done virtually. That was a change because I had to plan for how we were going to complete this presentation. What information was going to be provided because there's a lot out there. And we started working on this probably about a month ago. When we've already done this presentation so many times before, but that was acting within 1 month, and we're planning for it within 1 month because we're planning for April. And that's where we are now, because I'm reminding myself this is a pre-recording and it's April the 19th as we're watching this video. So next one. What are the steps in the plans that you made? When you make a plan, it says, do you have a plan to help you make it? If so, what does it look like? You want to help the person find a change strategy that is realistic, acceptable, accessible, appropriate, and effective. This can be a SMART goal. You can even do the SMART acronym, which is the SMART. Is it SMART? Is the step SMART? No, it ain't. It's not smart. It's specific. See, somebody right there, if I was in class, would have corrected me. Somebody did type it in the chat. She said smart. It's not smart. It's specific. So what is a smart goal for someone in a plan, making a plan? Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Is it realistic? And is it timely? That's a smart goal. And you do that with each thing that you're trying to, the plan that you're trying to make. If your client is wanting to, saying that, you know what, I've been thinking about it, I want to stop drinking. What's specific? Don't drink on the weekend. That's even measurable. When? The weekend. Yeah, the little thingamajigger is up. I can see it. Okay. Achievable. Can you not drink this weekend? Is it realistic? Is that realistic? You not drinking this weekend? Is it timely? So that's a plan. What's the next one? Time for some action. Next one. You begin to practice this new behavior for at least 3 months. They tell you 21 days. 21 days is a habit. So what steps are you working on? You can go to the next slide. What steps are you working on now? How are you doing with this change? And what things that are easy for you to change and things that you find to be a challenge? And out of all the action steps, why is that one not bold? Support and be an advocate of that person and help them to accomplish those steps. Not the next one. So then the last stage of change is maintenance. Next slide. That means that they are continuing a commitment to sustaining new behavior. This is 6 months to 5 years. This keeps with earlier we said you're 2 years before your brain clears up. What are you doing to keep the change going? What helps you to be so successful in maintaining the change? And does this change seem like it is permanent now? And again, consciousness, the stages of change focuses on consciousness raising, which is, you go next slide, consciousness raising, which is next one. Increasing awareness about healthy behavior. Increasing awareness about healthy behavior. We mentioned this earlier. So how do you increase an individual's awareness about healthy behaviors? By giving them the pros and cons. The next one, emotional arousal about the healthy behavior. That's dramatic relief. So you really want to get them excited about, changing whatever the behavior is. What's the next one? Self-reevaluation. A self-reappraisal. When you ask them the who, what, where, when, why, and how questions, you're really asking them to look at when there was a time when there was healthier behaviors. Next one. And the social reappraisal is how it affects others. I always say that, and then there's some programs that have a family component. And in the family component is bringing in the family members' collateral information. They say, well, I don't think it's a big deal, but what would your parents say? Or what would your wife say? Would they say it's a big deal or not? So that's the social reappraisal. Next one. Social liberation. A commitment to change is based on belief is possible. Change based on belief is possible. They believe that they can change. Next one. And finding supportive relationships, that's a challenge for some, but that is one of the recommendations under the stages of change, is finding someone to support your plan. Next one. Substituting healthy behaviors. Instead of eating candy, eating peanuts. That would be counter conditioning. You can use that for smoking. Instead of smoking a cigarette, a toothpick, but you want to substitute healthy behaviors. Next one. And rewarding the positive behavior is reducing new. So you reward the positive behaviors when someone does something different and it moves them towards their goals that they set during the plan stage or the action stage, then you reward that. Next one. Regenerating, re-engineering the environment, questioning the environment and um, changing it so that they can have a better outcome. What's the next one? Hmm. What are some questions and answers? You can go to the next one. Of course, there are some limitations that is considered when we're talking about this model. It ignores the social context in which change occurs. It says the lines between the stages can be arbitrary, so we don't know when one goes to another one. And it says that most questionnaires are not standardized or validated, and then there's no sense of time. So in the last few minutes, I would like to share the intervention that is used with our DWI clients. So you want to go to the next one. The chain of events. And the crime, this can be considered crime chain of events. We've done a DOT chain of events. We can do an anger chain of events. The first question, it says, what were the series of events that led you to being to whatever? And then I left the lines blank, so this can be modified. And then it asks, what are your thoughts and feelings when you blank? Then what were your feelings about being asked to change? Which you could say, what were your thoughts and what were your feelings about being asked to not drink? What were your thoughts and what were your feelings about being asked to? And then the number 4 one, the dot 4 is what happened after when you thought about you needed to change? Were you serious? Were you hurt? Were you injured? And then it has describe your experiences with change. So what has happened when you try to change something? And then it's the 6th dot is in one sentence, how would you describe then changes you want to make? And then the number 7 dot is, the 7th dot is, does your experience have any impact on your change? Why not? So go to the next slide. So I wanted to show is, this is the DWI journey that is used when a person gets and this is where the crime chain of events came from. And if we go to the next slide, it goes a blank journey. I like the next slide. You're gonna go to the next slide. A blank journey, and it says, here's an explanation provided to allow those to understand the process better. So I like that, and you can go back to the DWI journey. So you can take this graphic, and the first question is, the incident was a drinking and driving incident. And the person, so what was the event that brought them to treatment? So asking the incident was the drinking and driving, and you ask the who, what, where, when, why, and how. So you can go to past that one, and I broke it down. What brings them to treatment? Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Next one. Sounds very simple as far as an intervention, because it says when you ask them who, you're asking each of these questions, ask the clients to provide insight about their relationship, their influences, and their interactions. So if you ask them, what were these series of events that led you to being stopped by the police? Who were you with? When they answered the who, it would give you the answer of maybe those are people that they don't need to hang with or be around, or what, or why. The who would also be, who was in the car with you. And then if what were your thoughts and feelings when you were pulled over? You still could ask the who, because who was the first person they called? Most of the time, it may be their parents because they trusted to call them, but when they answer parent, you can say, well, was it your mother or your father? So the person that they answer is the one that was not going to probably cause the most conflict. Now, if they call the one that they would not want to know they got arrested, then that's not going to be the who that they tell you. And that information gives you the who and tells you where they are in their relationships. And so we're going to go to the next one. What? Same thing. If you have the blank journey, what were you doing? So it says these questions, the what question helps describe what the clients consider taking responsibility for what may have been the cause for their situation. So the GWI happened, the drinking and driving happened, they got stopped by the police, but what were they doing that led to that happening? What were their thoughts and feelings? What were their feelings about the change? Because when they tell you the what, I always ask the question, who in the world said that 2 beer was what you answered when the police ask you, have you had anything to drink? Because 2 beer is enough for an '08, and that shouldn't be. That's who came up with that. That would be a who. And also what. The next one is where. Where you were when you decided to make the change. It gives you the location, the distance they are from the original location. And in the sake of the DWI journey, it says that they were 5 miles from their home usually, and they were not far, so it keeps them there. When you're asking them about the changes they want to make, one of the criteria is of the substance use disorder is changing locations, and changing the location doesn't help with the changes, not usually, especially if they still have the same thoughts and feelings. And so you still want to go back to stages of change. What do you need to change, and what do you need to change about your outlook of if you move yourself from one place to the other one, are things really going to change? Next one. When. We always talk about the drinking and driving, and for this DWI journey, the when is the time of day, the year, the season, as well as the time of year that causes them to reconsider their behavior. Some people can do fine in the winter time and not drink, but as soon as it gets warm, that may be a when that they need to consider making a plan for. So the stages of change still applies to the intervention, which is the chain of events, and talking about, what their plan is, what action they're going to take to prevent their situation. The next one, how. Asking the question how helps to identify how they will maintain their decisions. When you ask them of the series of events that led them to being stopped, or the series of events that led them to change, talking about the how are you going to do that? How are you going to get rid of people that you've been friends with for so long? How are you going to change the behavior that you've been doing for so long? How are you going to do that? Are you before thinking about the how? Are you thinking about the how? Are you, moving past the how into the plan of action? Then the next one is why. Why? Asking their why allows them to feel comfortable with sharing their values freely without fear. If you're presenting with the why, with the stages of change, and there just might not be there yet with the why they do what they're doing, then you're able to say, oh, okay, well, here's the pro and con of your why. Maybe your value of respect is of your friends is, do they respect you? If you got in trouble for marijuana and you're a truck driver, why? What is the value to that? Like your value of your friendship, is that more value than you're being able to take care of yourself or making your own decisions? So that is so all of that to lead up to the next slide, which is and then the last slide is, there's so many challenges and so little time to address them all. What other challenges do you foresee occurring in the near future? And then the last slide is, yeah. If you're interested in more information, a list of references, or want me to bring the Challenge of Change presentation to your location, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you again. My name is Melissa Enoch, Trinity Counseling Services, and I appreciate you all for participating in this workshop. Thank you.